All right, I've been asked a few times to do a little tutorial of how I do file ingestion and editing, and then finally like all of my metadata because I have a pretty like unique pipeline for all that. So first of all, we have the 92621 folder on my desktop. This is just to simulate an SD card being plugged in. And I would start by running a Keyboard Maestro script that I wrote, and it'll pull up a name session. So we'll name this based on what the recording session was kind of containing. So these were glass wind chimes in my living room. So glass wind chimes. He'll bring up this little session notes thing. So this date is always set to the system date. So assuming you pulled your files on the same day, that you wouldn't need to change this. Recordist. These are pretty much all these are set to defaults past that. So Kai, that's correct. Recorder, correct. These are actually Senkin CO100K X2. Let's say this costs about $60 in materials. Homemade glass and ice wind chimes. So it's basically gonna put those notes in a text document, save that to the folder, and save that into a text document and put it in the folder. Cool. Next, we'll open our quote unquote SD card and move that into the raw files folder. Awesome. And now we have everything in there, and these notes will be preserved in case I don't get around to editing these for the next like 3 or 4 months or something like that. But we're going to edit those now. So I'm going to copy the name of that folder, open Pro Tools, make a new little session, and change the word raw to edit. We'll put that on the desktop, and we will bring those files in. So cool, add, put them in the clips list. Then we have that. Let's put that on a stereo track instead of a pair of monos. And I'm not even going to bother editing and mastering these, since everyone knows how they like to do that for themselves. But what I will do is I'll render these so they're now stereo files. Cool. And we'll pretend these are the mastered files and rename them. So inside of Pro Tools, I try to build my descriptions while I'm editing. So that's the point when I'd probably be most familiar with the files, if ever I'm familiar with the files. So this first one is a glass wind chime. And I'll start by writing a title for this sound in all caps, and then spaced with a space dash space. And then we'll start writing the body of the description. So the first thing to keep in mind while writing this is that the the title and the three first comma separated values are what are going to be taken for the effects name, and the effects name is going to be used for the file name. Anything beyond the third comma is basically just going to be kept to the description. So I try to keep the most pertinent things that I want in the file name towards the front of the file. So glass wind chime, small glass prongs, high pitched, clinking, twinkling, slight living room reverb, clanking, sparkle, sure, something like that. And I'll put a semicolon, and then I'll define if it's a close-up, medium, or distant recording. So this is a close-up, so CU underscore. If it's interior or exterior, so INT. So close-up is CU, medium is med, distant is DST. I always put a underscore between is a separating value between interior INT or exterior EXT. I have a document that goes through all the combinations or what you'd expect to put in this chunk. But now we see that name there. This next one, oh, you know what? Let's put in here instead of using the third value for twinkling, I'm going to say 2 cm glass. Cool, because the second wind chime is using a quarter cm. And it's basically the same thing. The actual pitch is actually mid. These are slightly lower pitch than the slightly thicker glass, just because they're kind of larger pieces and they just have a different tonality to them. Finally, we have ice wind chimes, small shards of glass, ice, dull clinking. Scraping. So this chunk is all now the effects name, and then I'll just put in a couple other things. Thin. Oh, you know what? Let's put this as thin 2 cm shards. Slabs, sure. That's a different word than shards. Clinking. Yeah, whatever, that's fine. CUINT. Cool. We'll render those out to a new file. Oh, sorry. We're going to go back to the desktop first. Take the raw folder. We'll make a new folder called just Kybe. So we're dropping the raw off that. Go back, drop these all into that folder. Render that for a moment. In SoundMiner, we're going to go to our RAM database. Waiting for these to render out. Cool. So I'm just going to explain this before I run it. You can see in the file names, you have the title. That's going to become our track title here. We have our description. So basically everything in the track title up until the semicolon is going to be moved in the description. Everything here past the semicolon is going to be moved into mic perspective. And then a lot of these other fields, such as library, designer, microphone, recording medium, are set as presets. So once those fill out, we'll just have to do a double check to make sure all of that is consistent with what we want. The file name is going to get changed to UCS, but we don't have the description, or we don't have the categories yet. So if we wanted to, we could fill those out in advance. So these are glass movement. The first two, the glass ones, are glass movement. This last one is ice movement. Cool. And we'll run that script. And now it's built a UCS category file name. We have our track titles, mic perspectives. It's looked for that underscore that said CU_INT. Change it to a vertical line because that's not a legal character in a file name. Manufacturer, library, stuff like that was predefined in the workflow. We have our description here. We've taken those first 3 comma separated values, and those have become our effects name without commas. So that's what's basically used for the you can see that in the file name here before the rest of those. Category was assigned earlier by us. Microphone is set from the template. That is incorrect. So second C100K X2, great. Recording medium, that's still my default. Great. Recording type, I would change that to studio recording if it was recorded in a studio. This was in my living room, so I'm going to count that as a field recording. I could put extra notes in here if I wanted to. Track year is actually stolen from the folder path. So you see that how I had the date in there. That has now been thrown into the track year. And the rest of this is all from template. So I think the only thing that is also stolen from the file name, if we look at everything at the same place at the same time, Kybe is put in the short ID, so that's stolen from this first part of the file path. And the source is taken from the full name of the file path. So if we wanted to go back maybe years later or something like that and figure out where our raw files came from, we can just go to the source and say, oh, okay, that was in this. And the other thing too is that the files will finally live in this Kybe folder. So that's just a precaution in case these files get separated from their like home folder, like if you're handing them out to other people and need to track that backwards. And yeah, that's basically the whole process of doing metadata for me.